Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today, we have the pleasure of having Mark Bryant, a super lawyer from Eastern Kentucky. He has been practicing for over 45 years in a little town called Paducah, Kentucky. I say little, it still had 15,000 people in the town I grew up in, but came from humble beginnings and one of the best known trial lawyers in Western Kentucky. And I think the Los Angeles Times actually called him a former prosecutor with a swashbuckling style that charms juries. And I can understand that. I met Mark through Pilma, and he joined Pilma, and he's joined our mastermind. And I just really have been enamored by what he's done in a small market and the type of practice he built, and the fact that he does mass torts and has really figured it out. And I wanted him to share that with you today, because he's got, I could go on about being past president of Kentucky Commonwealth attorney and outstanding Commonwealth attorney and Kentucky award by the governor. But I'm going to let you just tell your story. Tell us how you got started and what did you do to start with? I know you started out as a prosecutor. Just tell us the whole story, how you built,
it's really kind of funny, Ken, because everybody's got their own way of growing. And when I got out of law school, like every other lawyer ever gotten out, I wanted to change the world. And so I got a job in the prosecutor's office. And my uncle, who was a Commonwealth attorney, went off to become a United States attorney and under Jimmy Carter administration for the Western District of Kentucky. So I took over as Commonwealth attorney in Paducah. And when I turned 40, my wife asked me, said, Mark, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I told her, I said, well, I'm thinking about opening a Dairy Queen. Because I really didn't like lawyers at the time. All I ever dealt with, it seemed like people just lied to me. And so anyhow, but she finally talked me into doing something that I might know something about. And that was starting to practice law. And Ken, the first day that I got out, it was in January of 1990, and I started this law firm. I didn't have a single client that I knew of. And yet when I opened my office, I mean, it was really shocking to me then and even now. I mean, people would stand out on the street wanting to, waiting in line to talk to me about legal problems that they had. And so I went from being on a Commonwealth attorney's salary, which at the time was a pittance. It was $60,000 a year. And my first client came in and he was indicted on an odometer rollback case. And so he asked me, he said, what are you going to charge me? And I didn't know, because I never charged anybody anything. I was a prosecutor. And I said, well, how about $25,000? And he said, do you take cash? And I said, sure. And he brought me $25,000 in cash. And I took it home. And I went in the bedroom and my wife was in there and I said, look at this, honey, we're rich. And I threw it up in the air. It all came down the bed. It was just so exciting. But Ken, I didn't know any better because I didn't know about paying taxes. I knew you had to pay taxes, but I didn't know about taking money out every quarter and doing that. And so finally, when the time came the following April for me to start paying my taxes, I had to go to the bank and borrow the money to do it. Because I never had any money for it. I was spending it and having a good time too. But anyhow, that's how I got started. And over the years, I brought in more and more lawyers, and we've got 8 lawyers in our law firm. We've got an office in Paducah, which is far western Kentucky, and then we have an office in Louisville. And we have a varied practice, but the thing that really runs the practice is the personal injury department, because those wrecks happen all the time. We're right on the interstate. We have trucking accidents. We've got lawyers down here that do nothing but personal injury cases. Kevin Shannon, Austin Kennedy, and they got a staff of paralegals that are second to none, including one, Judy Storm, who has worked for us for almost 20 years. And before that, she worked for State Farm Insurance as an adjuster for 20 years. And so we've got a really good PI department. And what it manages to let us do not only do we have that money coming in on, streaming in from, from month to month, we don't really have any dry spells on PI. But just in case, we've got a family law department, we've got a criminal law department, and then that opens things up so that these other cases that we're involved in, like RFPs with state government. I mean, we bid on RFPs in Kentucky, and we've had several that have gotten really big bucks in. One that I just settled last year against Bayer Pharmaceutical for $17 million. And they had told me they weren't going to give me a dime, and we had to fight them for 6 years and had to go to the Supreme Court of Kentucky twice. And we won both times. And finally, what really won it was when we set them down for, I asked the judge to give us a trial date, and they were screaming and yelling and they didn't want a trial. Well, he gave us one, and that's when the case started settling, which is at all not unusual. But anyhow, so what that does with, like, Emily Rourke, who is my law partner, Emily and I and my son David, we work a lot of mass torts. And all this other money coming in helps you make payroll and do all the things that you have to do, pay for the advertising. But the mass torts, I mean, sometimes it takes years before anything comes in. I've got a case I'm working on right now where I'm working with Mike Moore, the former Attorney General of Mississippi, and several other really good lawyers, where we represent 17 states across the country against the federal government. We went in the Court of Claims in Washington, D.C. We won in the district court, trying to recover money for people that bought savings bonds. Basically World War II savings bonds up to Vietnam, and most of them are dead, and the government's keeping the money because they're not required to give it back unless they're asked for it. So we got legislation passed in 20 states, and where the money is cheap to the states. So we've been working on that forever, and now we're up we are in the legislature in Washington, and we've got legislation that it is sponsored by the House Budget Chair and a lot of other House members, both sides of the aisle, as well as the United States Senate. And we're trying to get that through. We've been working on it for 10 years. So luckily, we've been able to make a good living while the 10 years has gone along. But if this thing ever does hit and we get it done, I mean, it's a big lick. If it doesn't, nobody's going to miss a meal because everything's gone well. But that's the thing, though, Ken, about mass torts. You got to have a bunch of money to get to put into it in the very beginning, or you got to have some money that continues to come along so that you can make money and advertise for mass torts, because it really is very, very expensive. But when you hit on one like we just did on Roundup, it's also very, very lucrative.
So with so many different areas of law being practiced under the same roof, my question is, how does your firm manage to reach such a broad range of clientele?
Well, because we're in a small community and actually a small region, we have people come in from all over Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois, Southeastern Missouri, and our television station, we have an NBC affiliate here. We have CBS and ABC, one in Illinois and one in Missouri, and they're all here really close. We're like the 99th size advertising for all of for the television networks. Yeah. And so we advertise a lot on television. We do very little newspaper, but we've got our SEO, we've got an in-house marketer, and a lot of this stuff, we did really, really well before we got into PILMA, Ken, but PILMA has been an eye-opener. Emily and I had talked for a long time about how to find a group like this, because we knew they existed. I had a friend that was a contractor, and he would go 3 or 4 times a year and meet with other contractors that didn't compete against each other. And they would talk about common problems they had and the solutions for them. And so I kept wondering, I've heard that there are law groups that do this, but I've never seen anything about it. One day you wrote an article in the Trial Lawyers magazine or National Trial Lawyers, and I read that and I thought, well, I'm gonna call and see what I can learn. And that's exactly how it happened. And oddly enough, that was about 2 years ago. And because of COVID, I really do look forward to meeting you out in Aspen but Ken and I we see each other about once a week for the last couple of years. We've never even shook hands, and I look forward to it too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. COVID changed everything, and the deal is, I remember that article I wrote was in the, I think it's a special magazine, went out to A-list, the top 100 spenders, law firm spenders in the nation, whoever the top, 200 lawyers or whatever on TV. And I read an article about masterminds and how I've always been doing masterminds for 20 years and how they help my practice grow and my other businesses grow. And, it really does work. It really does. And the deal is, you hadn't even got the real taste of it because we've been having to do everything virtual. And our next meeting is going to be in Vail, Colorado. And hopefully you're going to bring your golf clubs. We're going to play golf one day, and then we're going to work 2 days.
That's why I'm coming out there the day before, but I don't get there until 12:30. And I don't know what time you got to pick it up. But anyhow, I'll see you then. I'll see you the day before.
Okay, good deal. But anyway, so let me ask you this, since you brought it up, I didn't bring it up. What do you think the biggest benefits of the mastermind has been for you, as far as you said it made a difference? In what way?
Well, it's been an eye opener, really, because, we've advertised since the 90s, television advertising, and we've done, in my opinion, a very good job. But until I got in there with you, I didn't realize how much more could be done that would help. And so as a result of you, Ken, I have hired an in-house marketer who worked with television stations, radio, newspapers around here for years, and she is doing an excellent job. Her name is Carrie Thornton. And then before I hired Carrie, though, I hired somebody you told me about out of Houston named Jody O'Hara, and she is fantastic. And so I still have Jody on the payroll and Carrie on the payroll, because between the two of them, we're figuring this out the best that we can. And the phones are ringing off the wall, and not every case is a case, but at least they think about us. Well, a good example. We had a terrible accident on I-24 the other day, which runs right through our community. So you come from Southern Illinois into Kentucky, and they're doing highway construction. And some trucker came flying through from Illinois, wasn't paying attention, and he hit 8 cars. And out of the 8 cars, we have gotten 5 phone calls. 5 different people called us. And I anticipate another one. There was a tragic injury and a death. I know somebody that knows them. And it's the thing about a small community, everybody knows everybody else. And so the guy told me, he said that somebody's going to call me about it because he knows them. So anyhow, we get a lot of cases by referral, Ken, but also out in the region, we get them through television and we get them through SEO, which I really knew nothing about until I got on there with you. And another nice thing about PILMA is none of us compete against each other. And as a result of that, everybody's willing to share information. And just a perfect example, today we were complaining about answering service that we'd had used for years and years, and we just didn't feel like we're getting our money's worth out of them. And so I put it out on PILMA. I said, anybody got an answering service they can recommend? Because you don't have to use an answering service locally. I'd rather, but if we can get somebody that really is a crackerjack, I want to use them. So anyhow, but PILMA is really good because you can get great ideas from other successful law firms on how to run your operation.
Well, I appreciate that. So let me ask you this. How did you get into mass tort stuff? It's mind-boggling to me because you usually see lawyers that do mass tort. I'm just saying this. That's why really the big reason I wanted you on here is you're a damn good person and a good lawyer, but it just amazes me that you've got a super, super large law firm in a small town that you're doing big cases. You just said what, 17 million? You're doing these great big cases, and what drew you to that?
Let me tell you this, these are 2 good stories, and everybody's going to have their own story on how they get into mass torts. But there there is a guy from Paragould, no, let's see, not Arkansas, but anyhow, a lawyer about our age down in Mississippi, and he got 3 or 4 boys that practice law with him, and I can't think of his name right now, but I've never met him, but he did a bunch of mass torts. And I always thought, well, that's pretty cool, being from a little old town in Mississippi and being able to do that. I always kind of aspired to doing it. So I've been thinking about it for, more than 20 years. And so a few years ago, probably 15 years ago, a surgeon friend of mine from here in Paducah, his name's Dr. Joe Mayo. Dr. Mayo is a buddy of mine. And he came to see me and he said, Mark, I bought a Prada purse at Sam's Wholesale, and I paid $600 for it. And he said, I gave it to my sister-in-law for her 60th birthday, and she lives over in Italy. And she called me recently and told me that purse was fake, and that she wanted to know where I got it. And so anyhow, he said, I told her, I said, well, I got it at Sam's, and they assure me that the thing is real. And he said, so when she told me what happened and what had happened to her was, the thing started unraveling. And so she took it to a Prada store in Milan, and Milan said, we'll have it back to you in about 3 weeks. Well, in about 2 days, she got a phone call, and it was a person in counterfeiting from the factory, and said, where did you get this purse? And she said, well, my brother-in-law gave it to me. Why? He says, well, it's a fake, but it's the best fake we have ever seen, and we've got to know where it came from. And so anyhow, long story short, he told me, he said, I want my $600 back. And I said, well, if I can get Prada to tell me that thing is fake, I believe I can do you a whole lot better than that. And so I ended up calling. I had to stay up until the wee small hours of the morning to talk to this lawyer that works full time on counterfeiting for Prada purses in Italy. And we had a little communication difficulty, but long story short, she told me, she said, not just this one purse, but anything that they sell that is that they claim to be for Prada is fake. And so I said, will you put that in writing? And she said, yeah. And so she did put it in writing, and I filed a lawsuit against Sam's and against Walmart. And I hadn't filed it for very long, Ken, and I get this call from a lawyer in New York City. He told me he had been the lawyer in the Clinton White House, and that he was now representing Sam's and Walmart in this lawsuit. I want to know if I'd come to New York City and litigate and mediate it. And so I told him that I would, and he said, well, the mediator, if we can agree on this, he said, the guy's really good. He said he mediated the baseball strike, and I think if he could do that, he can probably figure out a way to get us together. So I said, that's fine. So I went to New York City, and I'll never forget, I had one Armani suit, and I put it on, and at the time I was representing Tony Stewart, who was the race car driver, Smoke. And he had given me a championship ring for keeping his name out of all kinds of newspapers and magazines, and for giving him good legal advice that kept his nose clean. And he was so glad about it. So he gave me, it was a championship ring for NASCAR with my name on it. And I wore that, and I wore my wife, and I have a pretty neat wedding rings. So that's what I had on. And I went up there looking as good as I could look, and I told them what I wanted, and they laughed at me. And then they started telling me the case wasn't really any good. And I said, I think it is so good that I have other cases where Sam's and Walmart's done the very same thing. I said, you took Tommy Hilfiger underwear, and you had somebody make it for you. And by doing that, they sued you, and they got $17 million out of you for doing that. And I said something similar happened in Nike. Every time they tell me how lousy my case was, Ken, I think I've told you this before, but I had this investigator that was a former investigative reporter for the Louisville Courier-Journal, and the guy can find out anything about anybody. And so I had sicked them on Sam's and Walmart to find cases where they had done this to other people. And every time they tell me how lousy my case was, I drop another case down showing where they had defrauded other people. And so it just become a cost of doing business. So this lawyer for Sam's was not in-house counsel, but there were 2 in-house counsel for Sam's and 2 for Walmart that were all sitting in there. And every time I do that, it was like they were shaking their head. They knew about those. Well, this lawyer from New York, he didn't know about them. And so it was really kind of cool. And as the day went by, I finally decided, well, I've had enough of this. They're not giving me enough money. And so I said, I'm out of here. And I packed all my stuff and I walked to the elevator, and it was dark. We were up on like the 52nd floor of this building in Manhattan. And as I pushed the elevator and I heard a ding ding, all of a sudden the mediator was in there and says, I got one more offer for you. And so I came back in there and they made their final offer, and it was a big offer. I had to sign a confidentiality agreement, so I can't say what it is, but I will tell you that I got my clients a hell of a lot more than $600, and both of them, and then we got the case settled with Sam's, with Walmart. It was my first really big case.
Yeah.
So the question you asked was, how did I get in mass torts? Well, I still wasn't there yet. I was wanting to go there, and I knew I had the money to get there. But about the same time that happened, Ken, I got a phone call from a guy that said, you remember me? And I said, no, I'm sorry, but I don't. He said, well, you represented me in a divorce years ago. And he said, I live up in Tamaroa, Illinois. And he said, we've had a train derailment and we can't get any lawyers to come and see us. Would you come up here and see us? And I said, well, yeah, I'll come up there and talk to you about it. So I've never handled a train derailment before. And so I got to looking, I got doing some research on train derailments. And then I picked up the phone and I called my niece, who's a lawyer down in Baton Rouge, and that's the petrochemical capital of the United States. And I asked her, I said, surely there's a lawyer down there that's handled a train derailment. Do you know of anybody? And she said, well, I don't know him, but I have heard that Calvin Fayard does that kind of stuff. And I've heard he's a really good guy. So I called Calvin, and Calvin is just a really, really interesting guy, good guy, smart lawyer. And James Carville introduced him one time at a seminar I was at. And Carville said, Calvin Fayard lives in a house bigger than the town he grew up in. And so anyhow, so I called Calvin. I told him who it was, and I said, we got a train derailment up here, and you're the only lawyer I know that's ever handled one. Would you like to come up here? And he said, well, I was hoping you would call me. And he said, yeah, I'll be there. So he got on a plane and brought his law partner, Blaine Honeycutt. And we went up. The first meeting, they were not with me. But the first meeting, there were 8 people in a mobile home, and the stench was terrible. Chemicals were awful, and about 1,200 people were evacuated when this train had derailed. And so I went over and met with 8 people, and I said, I'm very interested in this, but I can't do it for just 8 people. We got to have a bunch of people. And if you'll find a church or a school that'll have you, I'll pay for it, and we'll have a meeting. And we had our first meeting, and there were like 800 people. I mean, those people in that town had nothing else to do, and they were mad because they'd been run out of their homes. So we had about 800 people there, and we signed them all up. And so it took, again, years and fighting all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court. We did that twice. And finally, it looked like the case was going to be thrown out because the Supreme Court had voted against us again. All the lower courts had always upheld what had been done. And so we came up with this idea and said, well, let's just file 800 separate lawsuits. And we did. We didn't file a filing fee for all of them. We filed one lawsuit with attachments, 800 attachments to it, and they accepted it. And then all of a sudden the railroad started thinking, oh no, this is not going to go away. And so we ended up in St. Louis, and I'll never forget, we paid a guy $600 an hour. Now this year, it doesn't seem like all that much. It's still a lot of money. But this was like 15 years ago. We were paying this mediator $600 an hour in St. Louis. And after 2 days of mediation, we settled that case for a huge amount of money against Canadian National. And that's when things really took off. It's kind of like at Beasley Allen, when you talk to Jerry Beasley, he said, we were just kind of a little law firm until we got that $11 billion judgment that we collected for the state of Alabama. And once we collected it, we really started growing. Well, that's kind of the way it's been down here. Once we got the pot of purse case in, we got the train derailment case in, and all of a sudden we were sitting on a pile of cash. And that's when we really started getting involved in mass torts, because in order to get them, you either got to buy cases or you got to advertise for them. And so we advertise. We've never bought a case, but we have advertised for cases. And we do a lot with CAMG, and we do some with that social media, and we do our local advertising. And that CAMG group is just an outstanding group of people. I mean, whether you use them or you don't use them, they give you a tremendous amount of information. Steve Nober is just a good guy to deal with. He's honest. And we have had nothing but good experiences with CAMG, and we've got a lot of mass torts through advertising with CAMG. And we're trying to right now with social media, and we're trying to do that so we can get more Zantac cases, because Emily was just assigned to the trial team by the circuit judge that is handling the case out in San Francisco. And so she and Jennifer Moore are going to be out there trying some Zantac cases, hopefully this next year. So anyhow, it continues to work out well.
So I know specifically, I know that firms like Morgan & Morgan, these mega firms, they come in, spending millions and millions and millions on TV. How do you deal with that?
Well, I know John Morgan, and I don't, all I can say is that he came into our community and is trying to do the same thing. And I don't know how successful he's been, because if nothing else, he's advertising for stuff that people say, well, I wonder if Bryant's doing that, we'll just call him. So it really, I have seen little, if any, impact. We continue to grow every year. We are kind of the local boys done good. I grew up here, Ken, and I'm a fourth generation Paducanan. And my granddaddy was a Greek restaurant owner, and my other granddaddy was a deputy sheriff. And so my wife's from Paducah. Our kids grew up here, and then they went off to college and married people from out of town. And so they ended up in Louisville and Orlando. And so I don't really, I welcome the competition. He actually is kind of funny, because John invited us down to Palm Beach, and Emily and her husband, Joe Rourke, and I all went down there and met with him. And he was trying to get us to start using his ad agency, and we didn't do it. And the next thing I know, they had moved in Paducah, but it's kind of an non-event to me, because he's not from Paducah, and I am. And I know jurors, and I know judges, and I know, I know a lot of people, and my lawyers do. They all grew up here, and they all went to school here. And like I say, we pay taxes here, we build buildings here, we send our kids to school here. And so, people coming in from out of town, they don't really frighten me at all.
Yeah. So when you do these mass torts, I'm sure if you've been practicing this long, you build up a database and you're known everywhere around there. Do you send out any direct mail pieces like, Zantac cases and things like that?
What we do, Ken, is what you suggested. We have increased our database on our emails, and we send out. We have not tried the direct mail, even though you had suggested we do it. And Jalen, write that down and talk. But anyhow, I want to try the direct mail because of the success that you told about that one particular guy. But we've been using emails to people and getting cases back. We're trying, like for example, Christian County, Kentucky, which is Hopkinsville, is one of the top places to use paraquat in America. Grays County, and that's an hour from us. Grays County, Kentucky is Mayfield. That's 30 minutes from us. So we're trying to hit the paraquat big time. I mean, we're doing it on television, we're doing it on social media, doing it on SEO, and it's estimated there are only about 4,000 cases in the country. But you talk about huge damages if people have Parkinson's disease as a result of that. And we're right here in the thick of it. I mean, you even look at what CAMG has, and they're saying that this is the heartland for paraquat and Parkinson's disease right here. So we don't have a lot of cases, but we're getting cases. We're getting calls every day.
Yeah, if you're getting them off the emails, I can promise you, because usually your open rate on emails is about 20%.
Yeah.
At best, but everybody tends to look at the mail, even if they throw it away, they still look at it before they throw it away. So
yeah,
absolutely. So how do you think the field of law is headed? Because you've been around like me a long time. You've seen a lot of changes, and I think we're going to see some more. But what do you think is going to be the future?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm afraid it's kind of like the country, Ken, that the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer. And I think that's still going to apply in the legal profession. And it's very troubling to me because I don't think it ought to be that way, but it costs a lot of money to do what we're doing. And I know a lot of lawyers are resentful of it, jealous of it, but if they don't do it, they're going to end up not doing well. And so I think that's the future. I still remember when I got to law school, my first copier, I had to split a copier with my boss, who was the Commonwealth attorney, and we bought a copier for $250. So I had to put in my 125, he put in his 125. But now, I mean, we got copiers now, we pay $25,000 for a copier.
Yeah, I know.
And, I mean, it's just enormously expensive to practice law. But that old adage, though, if you got to spend money to make money. It's the same way to practice law as it is anywhere else.
Yeah. So what would you give some younger lawyer advice if he wanted to get into mass torts or get into some kind of class action suits?
Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. First, if you don't have much money, you need to buy some cases. And there's all these companies out there, other lawyers that will sell you cases. We have not bought any, but we have looked at it. And you got the kind where you pay, for example, $2,500 up front for a case. And then when the case is completed, you're sharing a fee with that lawyer and like 10% of whatever you get out of it. There are some very few of those that you can pay $2,500 to, and you don't pay the bottom line fee. So if some young lawyer said, for example, I got $10,000, you might want to study the mass torts that are out here right now and see if you can buy a few of them and not pay anything on the rear end, and then go to a lawyer that's dealing in those kind of cases and ask them if they'll, put your cases in with theirs. And because that's a good start. And if you've done that, for example, in Roundup, the most recent big one, even 4 cases, you'd be shocked at how much money you would have made out of 4 cases in Roundup. So you can do that. Or the other thing is do it the way I did it, and either get some money and be ready to go out and advertise for them, and go to CAMG and some of these other places and advertise because that's the only way you're gonna get them. I know right now. You got Goldwater, you got Morgan & Morgan. At night, that's all they're doing is advertising for paraquat. And so there's nothing that'll keep any of us from competing with that except money. And you got to have money to do this. And I mean, it took me a while, but I'm sure glad I did it. And but I would encourage it. I mean, like associates that we have down here at the office, if they get money ahead, just tell them, if you want to buy some cases and put them in with ours, and we'll try and make you some money out of it.
Well, I think you're to be commended, because I just don't see that many firms in small towns doing the kind of practice, and it's not even a high volume practice. I guess it is sometimes with the mass torts, but the fact that you're doing these high profile cases, 17 million, and I'm sure, I know what Roundup settled for, and you had 4 cases, you probably going to end up with over $100,000 fees.
Oh yeah. But Ken, it's just like that case that we've got against the federal government that I've got with. We've got. I mean, we're hoping the legislation passed because There's $38 billion up there that would go back to the states. And see, when we got into this, David Frederick, who is a lawyer that we work with, is one of the deans of the Supreme Court cases. I mean, he argues cases for the Supreme Court very, very often. And he argued our case. And we knew that the Indians had gone through something very similar. The Indians had filed a lawsuit and lost and tried to get the Supreme Court to do it. And basically the Supreme Court just said, you know, you're going to have to get legislation passed to do this. And that's what the Indians did, and that's what we're doing. And so we've got a lot of support in Congress, and we're just hoping we can get this done.
Good deal. Any parting words you want to leave with our listeners out there?
Well, I'll tell you, Ken, I love being a lawyer. My daughter is a lawyer and a judge in Louisville, Kentucky. My son is a plaintiff's lawyer whom you have met. He runs our operation in Louisville, David Bryant. And I just think the rule of law is one of the most important things that we have in America that separates us and our democracy from other countries. And I want to see it continue, and I think it is hugely important to the future of our country and the well-being of our citizenry that the rule of law remains in effect and doesn't let anybody run over it, man nor beast. So I'm proud to be a lawyer, and I'm proud to be a member of the Pillman Group too, because you guys have, like I said, you've opened up a lot of doors for me, a lot of things that I never would have thought of before. But I can see clearly now, and I'm really looking forward to a few more years of doing this, and also setting it up so my lawyers can keep doing it when I finally decide to hang it up.
There you go. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next month in Vail, Colorado, at our mastermind meeting.
Adios. Thanks a lot, Ken. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and good luck on your cases.
All right, buddy. I'll see you real soon.
All right. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.